Premier, first of all, thank you so much for taking our questions, especially so shortly after landing, after viewing, such a disaster zone. First question off the top, sir, is at this point in time, has your office requested military intervention
Yes.
to help with folks? And tell us a little bit about what that consists of.
Yeah, I asked for military help yesterday. I spoke directly to the federal minister, and there's a lot of back and forth going on, but I can tell you, having just gotten back from Swan River, people are frustrated. There's a lot of emotion, grown adults crying and expressing a lot of emotion. There's a lot of laughs too, people kind of throwing up their hands and saying, what else can you do but sort of joke around and try to keep spirits high. So there's definitely a need for more help, because in the hardest hit areas in Swan River proper, there's folks who are still actively working to pump water out of homes that have been saved, to try and get into other areas to relieve some pressure. And then we know that as the water starts to recede, there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of cleanup to get done. We're certainly there as a province. We've got our own cleanup operation with all these roads and bridges and highways. The municipalities are doing a great job staying on top of things. So we'd like to see the federal government come forward with some human resources to assist with the current response and then the cleanup operation in the days to come.
Can you give us any insight in terms of the scope of resources that you've asked for, in terms of the number of personnel, or what equipment you might like to see, dispatched to the communities?
Yeah, I think we just need a whole heck of a lot of hands to help out. We're happy to share the RFA, the request for assistance, with you folks if you'd like to see it. But the idea is to get some more boots on the ground. You got homeowners who are stressed out and have been pulling all-nighters. You've got frontline service people, first responders. We just talked to some folks from the wildfire service on our way out at the airport. So people have been going hard for day after day, and not only would additional human resources on the ground help to respond to the immediate needs, but it would give people a chance to get a good night's sleep after having pulled many all-nighters. It'd give a chance for folks who've been going all out to catch their breath, and certainly that's what's needed, because looking at the scale of the cleanup that is going to be necessary, there's going to be weeks of work ahead.
What have you heard back from the federal government in terms of what they might be able to provide and what sense of
Yeah. There's a lot of back and forth going on, but I'd love for them to tell you and tell all of us.
And I guess in terms of the threshold of when coming federal assistance, what is the threshold of other flooding in recent years?
Everybody that we've spoken to said they've never seen anything like this. And I walked through floodwaters today to go provide some moral support and to check in on some folks. When you see a residential area and there's a stop sign with floodwater, a torrent of floodwater flowing by, it's a situation where it's beyond just the normal help that a municipality can offer. The province, we've been there, certainly we've got a lot of resources out in the field, everything from wildfire service to COs to transportation and infrastructure. And so again, we've asked for military assistance. If the federal government wants to send the armed forces, if they want to send Team Rubicon, whatever it is that they can get out here to Western Manitoba and to the parkland regions would really help people in rural Manitoba.
Some of the footage that's coming out of Dauphin, specifically the Dauphin Hospital, is really showing the extent of the flooding, sir. As the leader of this province, what was it like for you kind of seeing some of these places where folks really rely on kind of in a state of disrepair? What was that like for you?
Yeah, Dauphin is a healthcare hub for a huge chunk of Western Manitoba. It is that part of the province's health sciences center, to relate it in Winnipeg terms. And to see it be impacted the way it is, it means that other facilities in the region are going to be impacted too, whether that's the Swan River Hospital, Brandon, all the other rural hospitals in the region. So it's a big concern, but what I do want to say is thank you to the staff at the Dauphin Hospital. Not only do you have the emergency folks going all out, trying to work with contractors to pump water out and to save equipment and supplies, but I walked by medical staff who are working in complete darkness and they got headlamps on, going through trying to ensure that patient information and patient records are going to be taken care of. Like, that's going above and beyond. So along the way, I said thanks, but let me say thanks publicly to all the healthcare heroes. They pulled out an all-nighter last night to get all the patients to safety and to make sure that care was uninterrupted. Those patients are now the lion's share in Brandon, but of course folks here in the city, folks right across western Manitoba. And now today, it's a big effort to try and preserve the facility and the equipment and the supplies that are on hand there. And it is high stakes because Dauphin typically would be providing support to other facilities in the region. One small example, laundry, right? They provided the laundry service for the northern part of the Prairie Mountain Health Region. That's offline. That means there's a bigger impact on the laundry service out of Brandon. So just a small example maybe. Also said thanks to the laundry folks just for record keeping. But just maybe a very specific example to show how the impact there can spin off. And then you just think through all the other healthcare services that are offered in Dauphin: cancer care, surgeries, emergency department, IT, security, so on and so forth, right? It just really has a cascading impact.
Vous avez été en communication avec à peu près combien de résidents locaux et quel a été un peu leur état d'esprit?
Bien, il y avait beaucoup, quelques douzaines probablement. Et puis, il y en a beaucoup à Swan River qui sont frustrés, avec bonne raison, qui ont beaucoup d'émotions d'être peut-être mis en colère ou fâchés à cause du grand travail qu'ils ont fait et ils ont même vu le grand défi chez eux à leur maison. L'inondation a juste détruit des choses qu'ils ont essayé de construire, bâtir. Il y a des autres personnes qui ont juste protégé leur abri et puis maintenant sont juste en train de dire quoi d'autre qu'ils peuvent faire. Alors, soit à Dauphin ou à Swan River, les Manitobains et Manitobaines qu'on a vus, ils ont beaucoup de bon esprit, mais sont mis au défi. Alors, il y a beaucoup de monde qui sont aussi frustrés.
Qu'est-ce que vous avez demandé spécifiquement auprès du gouvernement fédéral? Qu'est-ce que ça va prendre en termes d'assistance?
Bien, on a besoin de plus de personnes parce qu'il y a beaucoup de monde qui ont déjà travaillé pendant plusieurs journées pour lutter contre ces inondations. Et puis même à ce moment maintenant, il y a beaucoup de travail pour continuer de lutter contre les inondations, mais il va y avoir beaucoup de choses à faire pour rétablir un bon mode de vie à Swan River et puis à Dauphin. Alors, si le gouvernement fédéral pourrait nous livrer des appuis pour appuyer ceux qui vivent dans le Parkland, ça va nous aider beaucoup ici au Manitoba.
The mayor of Swan River was concerned about road access being cut off and some other, including First Nation cut off. What's it looking like in terms of actually people getting in and out, getting food in and out?
Yeah, so for everybody in the region, stay on top of the information with your local authorities and then use the MB Ready app. We are starting to see some of the repairs happening. So it really is important just to stay up to the minute on those local situations. We have done contingency planning around things like food. Medications have been delivered by helicopter today in some situations, but I think it's looking like we are going to be able to have those lifeline type services and access starting to come back today and in the coming days. So really it's going to depend on where exactly folks are in the region, and that's why I say just look at the MB Ready app, turn to your local authorities, your local town, city, or rural municipalities website for the latest.
Can you tell us specifically who within the federal government you've been having conversations with at the minister level? For example, have you also been speaking with Minister Chartrand at all, considering she's the only Manitoba cabinet minister?
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into all the conversations I have. I can tell you yesterday I spoke directly with Minister Olszewski, who is the federal emergency measures minister responsible for, I should say. And yeah, I've pretty much reached out to everybody at the federal level to try and get the wheels turning more quickly.
Just talk a little bit, sir, about the response and the receptiveness. Do you think they understand the extent of the situation that's happening here in Manitoba? We've been hearing from folks for the last 24 hours, 48 hours, last week or so, compacted from the earlier floods in June.
Yeah.
Do you think they understand the situation and in terms of how bad this is?
I don't think anyone can understand, and that's why I'm reaching out to everyone that I can at the federal level to get this assistance for people in rural Manitoba. Listen, Minnetonka's had a 1 in 10,000 year flood event, right? Which means it should happen about as often as an ice age, and yet they've had 2 of those in less than a month, right? This is the result of a change in climate, and as a result, our response as government has to change too. And so we at the provincial level, we're trying to make sure that the DFA program, which sometimes can be very bureaucratic and prescriptive, is instead going to be more proactive and it's going to be more flexible. And so this call for help from the federal government, I just really want to underline how important it is and how rural Manitoba, really the whole province, needs some help, but rural Manitoba is where we're seeing the active flood fighting right now.
And what do you think in terms of longer term? Obviously things are changing. I mean, the hospital lost power because the backup generator is in the basement as well.
Yeah, there might be some specific details there, like on the, I think it was some of the electrical equipment, not necessarily the generator. But anyways, point taken.
Yeah. Things that weren't a problem before are now a problem. How are you looking kind of longer term and kind of preventative before we hit this again? How widespread do you do to preventing this in the future?
Well, I've been trying to avoid saying the phrase "build back better" all day because it's associated with Joe Biden. But, we need to make sure that our infrastructure and our buildings are resilient. We got to ensure that when we do get to reconstruction and to building these facilities, that we're not just recreating what was there before because we've seen it impacted so much. We have to make sure that we build it to a level that's going to be resilient in light of these unprecedented flooding and climate impacts. So when you look at the Dauphin Hospital, it's a conversation I had with the emergency manager on the scene, and he's already thinking about it. How are we going to, and he's got the added layer of how we're going to do this within what insurance is going to pay for, but I think the message to him is, we're going to have to go beyond the previous level in order to ensure the continuity of a service as important as healthcare. Same thing for the roads, like the Highway 10, the big connection, the big artery for Swan River. We had to cut it to let floodwater through, and so now we got to think about water control along that important stretch of highway here in Manitoba. So I think there's going to be a lot of conversations where we're going to have to build to a higher standard to make our province and the infrastructure our people rely on more resilient.
And how is this so far, budget-wise? Saying the budget isn't a problem due to rebuilding, but at what point does it become a financial concern for the province? Or how is it totaling so far?
Well, just on the number side, so we've approved $23 million so far for the Disaster Financial Assistance Program. That's inclusive of what we saw just over here in this area, Stony Mountain, Stonewall, and the first round of flooding, if you will, in the Parkland region earlier in June. The $5 million advance that we've announced for rural municipalities, I think so far a bit over $3 million has been committed today. And some of these municipalities were I think, reassured to know that they could get the cash flow in hand so that they don't have to burden their ratepayers with some of this rebuilding effort. And that $23 million that I'm mentioning is inclusive of that 5 there. So again, yeah, you're talking about tens of millions of dollars already, and we're not into the cleanup phase for some of the worst impacted areas. So there's definitely going to be a fiscal impact. But I just want to reassure Manitobans that when it comes to saving lives and livelihoods and properties, the dollars aren't a question. Whatever is needed is going to be there folks need medical attention, folks need medication, folks need to be rescued. Helicopters are in the region. Call 911. Your healthcare services are still there. When we get to the next phase of the operation, we're talking cleanup, we're talking infrastructure. Yeah, there's going to be some important work that we do to ensure that we can make sure it's sustainable, but also that higher, more resilient standard.
Are you asking the feds for assistance on that, or do you expect to?
Yeah, well, the Disaster Financial Assistance Program is a cost-shared program, and so we'll be working closely with the federal partners to ensure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
Any concerns about damage to things like rail infrastructure?
Yeah.
We've seen some photos of rail lines just gutted from underneath.
Yeah.
You know, what's your take right now in terms of the kind of upper level infrastructure when it comes to supply chain and things like that?
Yeah, it is a concern, but at the same time, just traveling around Dauphin today, we did see the CN rail repair crews out with, the material to go out and fix the track. So I think that has been one of the many things that we've been trying to stay on top of. In the Swan River region, LP is a major employer. Their plant near Minnetonka, and so the sooner rail line can get repaired and the sooner that LP can get back up to speed, the sooner folks can get back to work and the economy can start moving again. So yeah, it's a very, very important consideration. When you're talking about the parkland, you're talking about timber, you're talking about the ag industry, you're talking about a lot of related sectors, and they rely on the rail in order to be able to get goods to market. So I was happy to see some work being done to do the repairs, but it's definitely one of the things we want to stay on top of.
Any other questions?
A change to the drinking water situation throughout the day. Sounded like there hadn't been anything come up, but
No, nothing to report there.
Puis il faut que je repose un peu la question sur le budget, si possible. On sait déjà que vous avez débloqué de l'argent, 5 millions aujourd'hui, hier et aujourd'hui de l'argent, mais juste en termes de dépenses futures, quel est le niveau de risque que vous allez devoir dépenser plus d'argent?
C'est pas une question de risque, c'est une question de besoins. Et quand on voit les besoins, soit pour la sécurité pour les Manitobains ou pour sauvegarder leurs maisons, leurs abris, nous serons toujours là pour leur aider. Mais quand la conversation se dirige vers les questions de rebâtir des maisons, d'infrastructures, c'est là où nous travaillerons avec le gouvernement fédéral pour établir une situation de partager les coûts. Alors pour nous, à ce moment maintenant, c'est 23 millions de dollars que nous avons annoncé. 5 millions pour les municipalités inclus. Nous avons vu à peu près 3 millions, un peu plus haut que 3 millions utilisés par les municipalités aujourd'hui. Dans les semaines prochaines, je pense qu'on va voir beaucoup d'autres coûts.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks so much for waiting, folks.